Imagine boarding a plane, expecting a routine flight, only to witness an incident that would shock everyone on board. In today's story, we take you inside a moment that left passengers stunned and sparked an unexpected chain of events. It all began with a brief interaction between a flight attendant and a black woman seated in first class. At first, it seemed like a minor misunderstanding. But as tensions rose, something unthinkable happened. A slap that would send shockwaves through the cabin. The story doesn't end there. As passengers gasped and murmurs filled the air, the situation took an even more dramatic turn when the flight attendant discovered who the woman was. Her identity changed everything, setting off a series of consequences that no one could have predicted. What happened next? Why was this particular woman's identity so significant? And how did it lead to the flight attendant's immediate dismissal? Stay tuned as we unravel the details of this extraordinary encounter that has everyone talking. As the cabin settled into uneasy silence, whispers spread among the passengers like wildfire. Who was this woman, and what could possibly make her presence so significant? Those seated nearby could sense the tension even before the confrontation began. The flight attendant, known for her typically professional demeanor, seemed unusually impatient as she approached the woman's seat. A curt exchange of words quickly escalated, and then it happened, the moment that left everyone stunned. The woman, calm but visibly taken aback, didn't retaliate. Instead, she quietly reached into her bag and handed something to the flight attendant. What she revealed seemed to drain the color from the attendant's face. Other crew members rushed in, trying to defuse the situation, but the damage had already been done. Who was this woman? Some passengers speculated she might be a high-profile figure or someone with significant influence. Others thought she might have connections that made the situation far more serious than anyone realized. Whatever the case, the airline's staff quickly took action. As word reached the captain, the energy on board shifted again. A decision was made that would alter the course of the flight and the careers of those involved. But what exactly was the turning point? As the plane cruised at 30,000 feet, the atmosphere inside was far from calm. The other flight attendants whispered among themselves, exchanging glances filled with confusion and concern. Passengers leaned into hushed conversations, trying to piece together what had just happened. Meanwhile, the woman at the center of it all sat quietly, her expression unreadable, as if she knew something no one else did. One passenger seated nearby claimed to recognize her, whispering that she was a high-ranking executive at a major corporation. Another suggested she was a well-known activist with a massive platform. Either way, it was clear she wasn't just anyone, and the realization seemed to dawn on the flight crew all at once. A junior flight attendant cautiously approached her, attempting to apologize, but the woman simply raised a hand, signaling for silence. She wasn't interested in a scene, yet her composed demeanor only added to the mystery. Back in the galley, the flight attendant responsible for the slap was visibly shaken. She anxiously checked her phone, scrolling through a frantic search for answers, as if trying to confirm who she had just wronged. The captain was informed of the escalating situation, and passengers began speculating whether the plane might need to make an unscheduled landing. Tension rippled through the cabin, leaving everyone on edge. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, his calm tone doing little to ease the growing tension. He announced that the situation was being addressed and asked for everyone's cooperation. This only fueled the passengers' curiosity. Phones were subtly pulled out, messages sent, and a few bold individuals attempted to capture snippets of the moment, unsure if they were witnessing a viral story in the making. In first class, the air seemed heavier. The woman remained composed, glancing out the window as if the chaos around her didn't exist. Meanwhile, the flight attendant who had struck her was in the galley, her hands trembling as she fumbled with a glass of water. A senior crew member pulled her aside, their hushed argument barely audible. It was clear that this wasn't going to be swept under the rug. Passengers in economy speculated wildly, with some claiming they had overheard the woman speaking earlier in the boarding area. One insisted she had mentioned an upcoming meeting with high-ranking officials, fueling rumors that her influence extended far beyond the cabin. Just as the tension seemed unbearable, a flight attendant re-emerged, visibly pale, and approached the woman's seat cautiously. Their brief exchange ended with a single nod from the woman, who then stood up, leaving everyone guessing what was about to happen next. As the woman rose from her seat, the cabin fell eerily silent. All eyes were on her, yet she carried herself with a calm authority that left everyone intrigued. She walked down the aisle with purpose, escorted by a senior flight attendant, and disappeared behind the curtains separating the first-class galley from the rest of the plane. Passengers craned their necks, desperate to catch a glimpse or overhear anything that might reveal what was happening. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours, and whispers grew louder. Just when it seemed the mystery couldn't deepen further, the woman emerged again, this time holding a phone to her ear. Her expression had shifted. She was no longer composed but resolute, as though whatever conversation had just occurred had raised the stakes even higher. The murmurs in the cabin grew as another announcement came over the intercom. This time, the captain's voice was firm. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to unforeseen circumstances, we will be diverting to the nearest airport. Please remain seated and follow the crew's instructions." The announcement sent a ripple of shock through the passengers. Why was the plane being diverted? And then, a second twist hit like a lightning bolt. A passenger in business class suddenly stood, calling out the woman's name, revealing a connection between them that no one could have anticipated. All eyes turned to the passenger who had just stood up, their voice cutting through the tense silence. "Madam Secretary," they said, their tone a mix of shock and urgency. Gasps rippled through the cabin as the realization set in. The woman was no ordinary traveler. She was a high-ranking government official, someone whose presence on the flight carried far more weight than anyone had imagined. The revelation shifted the energy on board instantly. The flight attendant responsible for the slap, now visibly distraught, attempted to approach her, but a senior crew member blocked her path. The captain left the cockpit to personally apologize, but the woman calmly waved him off, focused on the call she was still holding. "Yes," she said firmly into the phone. "I expect a full report by the time we land." As the plane began its descent to the diverted airport, whispers buzzed louder than ever. Passengers speculated about what consequences would follow. Some wondered if the airline itself might face legal action. But just when it seemed the drama had peaked, the woman delivered one final twist. Standing near the exit, she turned to address the crew and passengers. "To be clear," she said, her voice steady but commanding, "this wasn't just about me. What happened today is part of a larger issue that must be addressed." With that, she stepped off the plane, leaving everyone stunned and wondering what ripple effects her words, and the incident, would have in the days to come. As the passengers disembarked at the diverted airport, the weight of what had transpired lingered in the air. The airline's ground crew and security quickly took over, ushering everyone to the terminal. The flight attendant involved was escorted away, her face pale and full of regret. Whispers circulated about her immediate suspension and the internal investigation that would undoubtedly follow. Meanwhile, news of the incident began to spread. Passengers who had witnessed the events firsthand were already sharing their accounts online, and the identity of the woman, a government official advocating for workplace equality and justice, added even more significance to the story. Her calm yet firm response resonated deeply with many, highlighting the importance of addressing systemic issues rather than focusing solely on personal consequences. For the airline, the fallout was swift. Within hours, a public apology was issued, promising a thorough review of staff training and policies. The woman's statement at the gate became a rallying cry for change, sparking conversations about accountability and respect in professional environments. By the time the passengers reboarded another plane to continue their journey, they carried with them more than their belongings. They left with a story that reminded them how a single moment of injustice could have far-reaching consequences, For the woman at the center of it all, her quiet dignity and decisive action turned an unpleasant experience into an opportunity for awareness and progress. And for those who witnessed it, the day's events would remain unforgettable.